Okay, good morning, everybody. So we'll go ahead and get started. So I put this question up in the chat about, you know, have you been finding it harder or easier to fit in exercise? And I was just kind of really curious about that. I know for myself, like I said in the chat, I've actually found it easier because I'm working from home most of the time, 3 days a week. And so just being able to, um, jump on the Peloton that we bought at the beginning of the pandemic when I have a free half hour and then, in between meetings, because when I go into my Zoom meeting, nobody can smell me. So it's okay if I'm sweaty. Though I do find, like today was, because I come into school on Thursdays, that this morning it was difficult to get up and exercise before work. And so I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to do that when I get home. So definitely I was like, oh, those are the old days. So with today, we have three topics actually that I want to cover today. I want to talk about what's happening in PE classes during distance learning, because I think of all of our curricular areas, that's probably the one that has changed really the most. Because it's just a total different, way of teaching and what it looks like. I know a lot of you have questions about what athletics are going to look like this year. And so we'll address that. And then I do want to talk about this idea of exercise and how do we get our kids who aren't currently in PE or don't do sports, how do we get them to exercise more, because it is so important. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I am going to let, we have Mr. Simos and Coach Jones with us today. Coach Clough is also going to join us. He had an 8:30 meeting, and so he's going to be joining us a little late. But Mr. Simos, let's talk about PE first. So, and then parents, if you guys have questions or you want to raise your hand or put something in the chat, please go ahead.
Great, thanks. Good morning, everybody, and hopefully everyone's having a great morning. Ms. Davis is correct when she stated that we have probably changed more than most classes because physical education is such an activity-based class. And it still is to a certain extent, but it definitely looks different, of course, just like every class does. We decided in physical education, we wanted to do a couple things. First one is get movement in the day, every day, with different various workouts, various types of workouts, whether it be cardiovascular, strength training, and flexibility, which are kind of the three main components of fitness. So we wanted to have daily movement with our students, and that was really the first and foremost thing, because that's also our number one standard in physical education for the state, is to have daily movement. So right away, the first thing most of us do is, after we talk about what we're going to do and get the class organized, is we get right into some type of workout or movement. I know I know this last Monday and Tuesday, my classes did an incredibly difficult core workout. And, after that core workout, they're going to be pretty much done for a few minutes or for a little while. After that, we want them to learn something. And that from each class does vary a little bit, to be honest with you, because at this time we've worked together to get some of our core goals aligned. But what that other part looks like is can vary from teacher to teacher. I can speak for my class, where they'll go into Google Classroom, I stay on the Zoom, and they work on whatever assignments in Google Classroom. This week was about the benefits of flexibility. The week before that was benefits of cardiovascular training. Week before that was metabolic rate, which is how your body consumes calories when you're just at rest, and how to calculate something like that. We've done assignments on carbohydrates, calories, proteins, fats, all the different components of diets, how to read food labels. What we really kind of done is try to beef up the nutrition education, and maybe probably a lot more written work than physical education usually has. With that being said, we're not being crazy about it. What I mean by crazy is we're not trying to overwhelm them more, because with physical education, probably a big piece of that is keeping the social emotional wellness, even whether we're in school or via distance learning, of the paramount importance for physical education, for the physical education curriculum. Um, we don't want the students to be overwhelmed, and they're already overwhelmed. So I guess, we can only do so much with that. So we're not trying to overwhelm them with too much busy work, too much work. We want to get them some movement. We want them to learn a couple tangible things each week, and kind of hopefully the movement and all of that will be more of a stress reliever than a stress causer, because this, quite honestly, this setup isn't great for all students. There are some students that are flourishing well though, which is really nice to see, including physical education students. I have one student that I had last year that did not do well in the class, and now she has an A in my course, and I'm so happy about it. And she's just doing really well, and her self-esteem's getting better, and the workouts are getting easier for her. And so that's really encouraging. So there are some students that are doing well, but of course there are a lot that are struggling as well. I know my own nephew is really struggling with this setup right now. He's a junior in high school. Um, Trying to think. I think that's pretty much the way the course goes for most teachers. We're just really just trying to, we're not trying to ding them on grades, or we're not trying, like I said, we're not trying to make it more of a stressful situation than it already is in PE, but we do want them to be moving every day. And that's also challenging. I know I speak to my students about, because I only see them 2 times a week. So I speak to them a lot about things they can do on their other days, because just moving 2 times a week probably isn't the goal. It's probably not optimal, but if we can get them in 2 times a week, and then maybe have them develop a way to get 4, 5 times a week movement, some type of workouts, then we're going to be doing a lot better. And once again, I mean, this is just an absolute correlation that exercise, that movement, constant exercise helps with stress levels. So that's why I think it's really important we keep on focusing on that movement. That's basically it.
Yeah, awesome. Ms. Coach Jones, I don't know if you have something to add, because you're also a PE teacher.
Yeah, I also do flip grids and 10-minute cardio when the students are not with me, because I would really like them to keep moving even though they are not with me for the full 5 days a week. I also introduced TED Talks to them, and I gave Miss Davis a URL for my favorite TED Talk, and it actually talks about how exercise actually helps your brain and the neuroscience behind exercise. And I told the students, I'm sorry?
I sent that out to the parents, so hopefully they saw it.
Perfect. I always tell the students there is studies that show that if someone is running on a treadmill, they actually have more brain power, movement and brain power, and they actually have more creative ideas. So I always tell my students, if they're ever stuck or have writer's block or can't figure out something, to go on a little jog and come back and see what happens. And hopefully we're encouraging them to have a little more exercise in their life, just because especially during this moment in time, they really do need their endorphins that they can produce, and they need all the energy to be released from their body, because we all know, or I have felt at least, like a pent up feeling from the pandemic. And as soon as I get out and I run my run, I'm feeling 500 times better. So we can't stress how important exercise is to these students, and we really hope that the students that aren't in PE are getting enough to keep them happy, healthy, and feeling better about the situation that we're in right now.
So I have a question for both of you as a parent, because I have a daughter who's always been an athlete, um, and this pandemic has like knocked her down. And so she's somebody that was, before exercising 2 hours a day. I never had to worry about her getting enough exercise, and now she is barely exercising. And coming from me, and I shared, like, I have found it actually so much easier to exercise now. Like, it's such a part of my life. I exercise every single day. And it is like my stress levels and everything, and like how I'm managing my life. If I weren't doing that, I don't know how I'd be right now. I mean, it would be a nightmare. So I have found it so helpful. But me telling my daughter, like, I'm mom, I'm just constantly nagging her. So I don't know if you guys have suggestions, and I'm sure I'm not alone as a parent on like, how do we get our kids to actually get out there and get more exercise and make this a part of their life without it being like mom and dad are just nagging them.
Well, Jessica said it right. You got to make it a family affair. So my daughter actually goes to Piedmont Hills this year as a freshman, and she's never been athletic, or she's a dancer. She's not really into sports at all. And what I do is I just instilled walking and hiking every single day. And every day we go out for a walk, and I have a dog, and we have a rescue. Right now we're fostering a husky. So those two really help out, because I say, somebody needs to take the dog for a walk. And just the simple walk of like 5 minutes around our block, I could see it in my teenage daughter's outlook and personality. Like, she's dragging in the morning time, but as soon as she takes the dog out, she comes back with a little pep in her step. So and actually make it a family thing. I love it when I have I have one student that gets a family member involved with her Flipgrids, and I always call it a dance party, where on Flipgrid they have to do some kind of physical activity to music for at least a 3-minute song. And she gets the whole family involved, and it's so fun to see them in the background being her backup dancers. She loves it. So any kind of hike, any kind of bike ride, set a little bit of time aside, maybe after dinner, to go for an afternoon walk. But actually doing it with them encourages them. That's kind of how we're doing PE too. I know a lot of us PE teachers do the workout and then show the video of us doing the workout, or we work out with them. I always do stretches with them every morning. So it kind of encourages my students to do the workout also. And sometimes my son actually comes on video with me, and he does push-ups with them and everything else. So it's kind of like I'm encouraging everybody, and they see my own children doing the workout also. So it takes a community to really boost the spirits of people, to get people out and exercise.
Yeah, I agree with Janelle on that. It's just trying to get everyone involved as much as possible. Same thing. I start off with our daily planks, and I get on the ground with them, and do all that stuff. And it's good for me too. The biggest thing is also what everyone's been kind of touching on is walks. Even family walks. Let's say you're gonna go to the convenience store that's at 3/4 of a mile down the road. Instead of driving there, just going ahead and everyone going out and walking together, and then walking back. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but all of a sudden you walked 1.5 miles, casually, you didn't even know it, whatever, listening to your music or anything like that. And you go from point A to point B, but you got some movement. And it's just really important to somehow structure in some movement every day. And even myself, I like to think I really work hard on fitness and everything. But yesterday, because I don't come in, because we have our meetings on Wednesdays, so I don't come into work, so I don't go to our weight room and lift weights. Realized I'd sit in my house all day long. I have a treadmill outside, so I went and ran, even though it wasn't the day I was supposed to run. I'm like, oh my gosh. So, I did it myself, and I'm very conscious of my movement. And so it's so easy to become sedentary, non-moving during this time. And everyone's seen that, everyone's seen, there's all kinds of jokes about that, and everyone really knows that early on in this pandemic, people weren't moving. So trying to develop that movement, it doesn't have to be intense, anaerobic, hard working out. They don't need to all of a sudden be doing, sprints down up and down the street or anything like that. Just some very simple movement can really, really help. But if they're completely just sitting around the house all day long, then all of a sudden movements start to become tougher and tougher and a bigger mountain to overcome. And then I noticed someone mentioned in the chats, Miss Davis talked about other Miss Davis. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that. So she talked about, going on hikes with friends. I have a lot of students that are doing that in their social circles in a safe way, going on hikes. And, we're lucky where there's a lot of different areas in this area to hike and even just go for walks in the park and stuff like that, because it's good for their socio-emotional wellness. Because, mental health right now at this time might be as much of a need and a concern as education, and maybe even more so.
Yeah, I agree. I really liked what Francine put in the chat in that idea of combining just the physical exercise with also, getting that social time with their friends, because that is, with distance learning, and this is something that we've talked about in a lot of these meetings every week, that is something that's really lacking. And just having those social connections is so important. Virginia, I see that your hand is up. I don't know if you want to unmute yourself and if you have a question or a comment.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I just want to say that you guys have been doing a phenomenal job with adapting to distance learning through PE, and Coach Jones is amazing. I just think that it's wonderful with the amount of schoolwork. Yeah, I know that PE is usually more physical, but I have learned a lot working with my son with some of these assignments that he has to do. I think the dance parties are super funny, but we have fun with them. And it's always surprising when he's like, okay, Mom, I need to go find myself for 10 minutes. So I'm going for a bike ride. And I'm like, you're going what? You're doing what? So he's very engaged. I noticed that he has a lot of fun with it. And, it's just been amazing for the situation that we're in and having to do it over distance learning. And he's upstairs in his room and I'm like, why are you making so much noise? And he's like, oh, I'm working out with the weights. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it's really good. You guys are doing an awesome job. I know it's probably tough. I know Coach Jones is not used to being, behind a screen, but you're doing a great job. Keep it up.
Thank you so much. I love that they are actually liking it. When you first create these lesson plans that are over the internet, you're like, oh God, I hope they like it. And I hope they're engaged. I hope they buy into it and everything. So I'm so glad. I am so glad.
Yeah.
And, PE is interesting. Health and health science is so interesting to me. So I hope that I give that to the kids too, so they understand what's going on with their body, and that they don't need to go to the gym. They can use a water bottle for weight. They can use a can of food for weight, and, just get up and do something. And then I don't know, I have the greatest students ever this year. They are so funny and we have such a good time. And I'm reflecting on it, and it's like, it's really hard because in PE, we usually get the social aspects of it. And I was just thinking about my lessons plans and how am I going to get these kids to actually meet each other? Because in previous years, I have students that are like, I met my best friend in your class and we've been best friends ever since and everything. And I feel bad because I'm trying to give them more opportunities to meet their best friends, because they have so many people that they need to meet here in this school because they come from all different junior highs and everything else. That and getting them to understand that all they have to do is get up and jog in place in their room, put on some fabulous music and have a good time. But I'm so glad. I don't know who your student is, and I don't know if you want to tell me, but I'll be excited when I see everybody today and tomorrow and tell them I'm so glad that they're having a good time.
Yeah, well, you got to remember that we're in a situation that is out of our control, and you're doing a great job for what you can. and I know my child is really enjoying it. My son is actually Azriel.
Oh my gosh, I love him. Yeah. He did the
Yeah,
10-minute
so
jog the first day, like right in front of me. He did jumping jacks. I couldn't
yes,
believe he did jumping jacks for 10 minutes. I
yeah,
love him. He's such a great
he's
kid.
definitely a character, and it's nice to see him really engaged and having fun, you know, because it was all new for him as a freshman. So it's, you guys are doing a
Yeah.
great job. Thank you. And
Oh, thank you so
I don't
much.
remember learning a lot of the, you know, other stuff that you're teaching during PE. It was always just go out and exercise. So I think that's really nice for the kids also to really understand their bodies.
Oh, awesome. Same with us. I got a one instance just blew my mind because one of my students said your weight and height are oh gosh, what did she say? She said your weight and your height go together. Like if I grow taller, I'm gonna weigh more. And I said, yeah, kinda, but not really. I so I wanted to teach them that just because you're 5'3" does it means you could be 100 pounds. It means you could be 200 pounds. It depends how much calories you intake. And so that's been an eye opener for me. But we've always kind of done the nutrition in freshman PE. It's just now we have more time to really focus on it and really get the information to the students. So they're going to know all about macros. They're going to know all about how many calories are in everything. So it's kind of a lot nicer that we have the downtime and we have time to actually get into real hard specifics when it comes to nutrition and their workout. Right now, my students are learning how to build a workout program based on their body type. I don't know if all of you know this, but there's you can actually have more benefits if you work to your body type than if you have just a generalized plan. So I'm really excited that they actually get to create a plan specifically for them. And you know, you see on Facebook and all these different places that people are charging like $400 for this, and these kids are going to be able to do it themselves, and that's even more exciting. But yeah, I think I'm having a great time in PE, and I'm down 17 pounds.
I
Yay,
think
me.
nice job, Janelle. I think that's
Thank
a good point about trying to develop his. I think we're all kind of moving toward that with the summation of all of this, is trying to get them to be able to develop their own full workouts and be self-directed in their workouts beyond this. You know, lifelong fitness is such a big piece of physical education, and for them to be able to understand how to take care of their bodies beyond, you know, 11th grade, 10th grade, 9th grade, you know, because we all, I know I have gone through different parts of fitness throughout our lives, you know, and with age comes different factors, as many of us have seen. So finding that way to teach them to become self-directed with their own fitness is really become a bigger goal through all of this. And Coach Jones also said another thing, with this time, it's forced me to prep a lot more with all of our nutrition content. And I'm hoping actually it's something that pays dividends beyond just this year and in the future as well, you know, utilizing things like Google Classroom, which I was not very good at utilizing 6 months ago, but you know, we're all Google Classroom people now. So it's just the way that's kind of turned. So, you know, maybe a positive unintended consequence if we can find a silver lining through all of this.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to athletics and what is happening with our sports seasons. So I'm going to let Ms. Jones, you know, give you guys an update and talk about what's happening. But I wanted to put a little caveat out there first for everybody. And just keep in mind with athletics that the information we're giving you is what we know as of today. That, you know, one thing that we've learned over the past, like, God, it's going on 8 months now, that everything is, you know, fluctuates, and it just kind of depends on what the latest news is. Right now, we are, you know, set to have our winter seasons, which were typically the sports that were sort of in fall, but not always, start in December. And So Ms. Jones, why don't you go ahead and go start?
No problem. So football, both volleyballs, so girls volleyball and boys volleyball and cross country are set to start December 14th. All sports have their schedules in, so all games are set and everything. We're just waiting for Santa Clara County Health Department to open up a little bit more. Right now we are underneath them. So we are only allowed to condition for our season 1 sports. And then hopefully Santa Clara County Board gives us a little more information and allows contact. At that point in time, then we will be able to start practices and tryouts and everything. Right now, we have no tryout dates as of yet, but it's probably going to happen around December 14th. That information will be on the Piedmont Hills School Loop Athletics site, and also I send out emails. So we are going to prep and prepare for a December 14th start for practice, and then our games don't start until January. So most times we hold tryouts right on the practice start date because that's when we're allowed to by CCS and BVAL. So tryouts will most likely be around December 14th. If Santa Clara County allows us to have contact with like student to student contact. And then we'll proceed with practices, and then games will start in January. Cross country is a little bit different because they don't need to touch each other. They're just running. But with volleyball, you have some teammate contact sometimes, and with football, you have major contact. So we definitely have to wait for those rules to come down or those guidelines to come down from Santa Clara County Health.
Hold on, Janelle, in the chat. So just want to clarify the School of Athletics site. She's talking about our website, the Piedmont Hills website. If you look on there, there's a tab for athletics, and that's where we put all of the athletics updates. So that's what it's our school website. And then there was another question about our parents going to be allowed to go to the games.
Yeah, I saw that one. I was getting there.
Do you want to tackle that one?
So at this moment in time, especially with the way Santa Clara County guidelines are, no parents will be allowed to come to the games. However, we are trying to figure out how to make the games visible through YouTube or televised or something like that. So parents will be able to watch the game from the comforts of their car or their home. But we're trying to keep as little of people in the stadium at one time or in the gym at one time, especially indoors inside the gymnasium. We're not looking to have people in the stands.
So yeah, I realize with those rules, those are very dependent on county guidelines for crowd size and things like that.
Right.
We're not, like with all of this, we have to follow the rules. And so what we are going to be allowed to do is based on what the county says, what we're allowed to do. If we aren't allowed to have crowds, we are looking at, ways that we can like live stream and stuff like that. So, because I know as parents, of course, you want to watch your kid. So we're trying to figure that out. So,
so students are not required to get COVID-19 testing, but they are required within the guidelines for fevers, to communicate if they have any symptoms. If somebody does come down with an illness, then they need to be tested because their entire team will then need to be quarantined. So the importance of communication with coaches is really, really important. On the athletics tab, there is a way to register your student for the sport. It's athletic registration. And when you go to the site and you create the athletic registration, there are forms that you have to download. And one of them is the current COVID guidelines form, which tells every parent what they need to do, what each athlete needs to do before practice, how to practice and everything. All coaches were given that paper to give to their student athlete also. So if the athlete is working in one of the cohorts, they must have seen these guidelines and signed the bottom of it to make sure. And once again, if a student is coming down with any symptoms or is not feeling well, practice and games have to be put on hold until we find out, number one, if it's COVID, and if it is COVID, then everyone needs to be quarantined after that. And we have guidelines and rules to follow for that also.
There's a question, will temperatures be taken at the beginning of each practice? I think as of right now, that is not the plan, but again, that's something that as we get closer to it, that may change.
When there's more contact, I believe we were planning on taking temperatures beforehand. Right now, during the cohort and during conditioning, there is absolutely no contact. They're supposed to stay 6 feet away from each other. They're supposed to wear masks if possible. So we're not taking temperatures at this moment in time, but once guidelines from the Santa Clara County come through that we can actually have contact, our plan is to take temperatures.
And so one thing I want to say about this and the expected December 14th start date, I just want all parents to kind of keep in mind, and maybe, just warn your kids that this may change. The COVID numbers in California have been maintaining and, actually going down, which is allowing California to open up more. But if you look at the rest of the country, it's getting worse. And if you're watching the news, you know that it's projected to get worse. A lot of people, like I know just in the district, and like kind of like, what, maybe I shouldn't publicly be saying this, but a lot of us are expecting that maybe there's going to be a delay. It really, like, if the numbers get worse over the next month, I wouldn't expect a December 14th start date. If that happens, like one thing that's kind of, with CIF and CCS that was kind of like always in the back of their head is the possibility of combining all of the sports into just one season, which would suck. I mean, yeah, that would not be great. As of right now, kids that normally did 3 sports are like probably having to like pick 2. If we go down to 1 season, then kids are having to just pick, 1 sport, and that wouldn't be great. But I think everybody wants to have at least some sort of season, and have something. We don't want to have, what we ended up doing last spring where we just canceled the season. That's certainly something we want to avoid. But again, the goal is always going to be doing what is safe.
I want to echo real quickly what Jenny just said. I was in a meeting with the powers that be of CCS. I was the athletic director before Ms. Jones and Mr. Club. I still work with the section. And there is, just to keep a real point of view on this, is there is talk that there's a possibility season 1 would either be postponed or even not even happen. So they're still waiting for their marching orders down from the state. So I think that everyone's doing a good job of planning accordingly, but to give anything for certain right now, it would be premature, just from what I heard from the powers that be at CCS.
Yeah, especially the winter season, because I think everybody's really fearful about it just being winter, and like it's the flu season also, and just, I think people are really concerned, which I think makes sense.
No matter what, we are going to definitely side on safety and precaution more than anything else. Tennis season is pushed to 2nd season, so they don't start until February, and it's both boys and girls tennis at the same time. Let's see. next, like this spring coming up, hopefully, if everything goes well, then we might have season 1 and season 2, which means all sports in spring, or it'll be just season 2 teams during the spring. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm reading the chat, slimming through it. Right, those windscreens are a little bit much. Well, we do have the upper area, so you can kind of watch from where the portables are down onto the courts. I will have to talk to a few people about those windscreens being so dark.
The bleachers can probably be moved, right, Janelle? Because I know that
Right.
well, and I fully agree. We do need some set of bleachers out there. They probably were just moved, and we can put in a work order for that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
So we'll
they
make
were-
arrangements for that.
I think they were supposed to buy new bleachers. Are there not new bleachers out there?
Not at
No,
right now.
not at the moment.
Yeah, and those bleachers that were out there, yeah, probably should be replaced if possible. So
Yeah.
bleachers would be called for if possible.
Okay, yeah, that's something we need to follow up on about that.
I will definitely get on the windscreens and put some holes in it. Squares cut out of them or something. We'll figure out something, but thank you for bringing that up.
So basketball, basketball is a spring sport now for this coming year, not always, but for this coming year. So basketball isn't, their practice date would be what, the middle of March for their start?
Their start is February 12th.
Oh, okay. So, and with the rules right now, only the winter sports, which are football, both boys and girls volleyball and cross country, can do conditioning. Once the winter season starts, and assuming it does start, then Janelle can correct me if I'm wrong, the spring teams can then start conditioning, right?
Right. So as soon as December 14th comes along, then the spring teams can start conditioning. The season 2 teams all start at different times. They all have practice start dates at different times. So it just depends on the team. And if on BVAL website, bval.org, you can go on there and find your team's schedule. I think we still need to update our school loop schedules. That's on our athletic tab, just because the schedules were so crazy for so long. But if you go to BVAL, it has all the games and it has the practice start time and everything on it. But yeah, basketball, girls and boys basketball, and wrestling and badminton all need to share the gyms. So it's going to be a little bit tight, and we're going to do the best that we possibly can with accommodating for practice times, game times, matches, all that.
Yeah, I was about to mention that, you know, just be prepared, because we are fitting way more into limited space than we normally do. We don't, especially the badminton and basketball, like those are the big things. I mean, wrestling's not, you know, as big of a constraint. So expect that the practice times are not going to be as long as they typically would be. We're just gonna, and one thing that we've been flirting with, you know, with a later school start, because school doesn't start until 8:30, that there is, that opens up the possibility of maybe doing some morning practices. And so that may be where we can fit in more time. So that we haven't worked that out yet, but
and Wednesday also can be utilized as a, if the coaches are able to make it a little bit earlier, they can come a little bit earlier and they can hold Wednesday practice.
Yeah.
So we're hard at work to work all that out. But the students are still going to need to get a physical, which is a little bit tough right now. And I will be sending an email out because our athletic registration site just went online with the new COVID guidelines and everything on it. So I will be sending an email out quite soon to all of our students about how to register and the guidelines that we have to follow at this point in time. I did send a athletic update out already. So most of our information is already out there for the students to know. And then I saw a few things in the chat. The tennis courts are open. The public has already come in and used them a little bit. I'm at Piedmont working out a couple of times a week, and I always see people out there playing.
Yes, I would say go ahead and get physical.
Yes, if you're doing season 1, might as well prepare for it. We're all preparing to start on December 14th. So worst case scenario, at least you're ready to go for whenever the season starts.
I mean, I would say like any season, like go ahead, and get the physical done. If you have to make a doctor's appointment, and go ahead and do that. I mean, because the physical is good for this school year. So
right.
Go ahead and do it.
And wellness checkups are really great for our students.
Absolutely. It's always a good idea no matter what.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions? I have to start heading home. I tripped over a goat. Actually, I didn't trip over a goat. I have this foster dog, and I was running this morning because, we have time to run now. And normally I'm done by 8:30 and home. But my foster dog kind of got spooked by a goat and took me out. So I hobbled back to the car, and that's why I'm in the back of my car, like hiding. But I have to start making it home to teach a class by 10:15 somehow. And I promise I will never go jogging in the morning near goats again.
We've been talking about the benefits of exercise, but that's the downfall, that sometimes you may get attacked by a goat.
Yes. Well, I live in Morgan Hill, and they let them go out here to eat all the grass down here. And apparently I wasn't, I've never seen a goat on my route before, but I guess they were cutting the grass.
Well,
so any more questions? I know. So weird. And it happened to be on this day.
I have so many questions, but I'll leave them alone. It's about the pet.
I know. I texted Ginny, Miss Davis at 8:00 this morning, and I was like, I tripped over a goat, but I'm gonna make it to this meeting. Okay, so I'm gonna get going. I'm sure Pete could answer any questions, but I need to drive the 5 minutes back to my house.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
So I think we've covered all the topics I want to cover. I don't know if anybody has any last minute questions. I think to sum up, PE is different this year, but I think it's kind of like, really, like we talked about, like the silver lining. I think PE is probably the perfect example of that, and really using this as an opportunity to, have, teach about fitness and, personal fitness, and actually really because you always want that to be the goal of like what kids learn. But I think now, especially because they're having to do it on their own and not just in a class, that, they can see like really that like lifelong personal fitness and like how they can make this a part of their life. I think that that's a really cool silver lining of all of this. So and one last question was in the chat: can the school put up a sign, no roller skating, scootering, no food, to protect the new tennis courts? Yes. I don't know if you're the person that emailed me about that. A parent emailed me with that suggestion. I sent it on to the district, and they are working on making those signs that we will put up around our new tennis courts. Yes, absolutely. Okay. And so also to sum up, any way that you can encourage your kids to get more exercise, if you're doing it as a family or like tricking them into like spending more time with their friends on like, hey, go and, you know, do this physical activity, is all really, really good. And I think for us as adults also to make sure that we're fitting in regular exercise into our own lives, because as we've talked about, it's a stressful time for all of us, and we have to model and manage our own stress. So make sure that you're taking care of yourselves, and make sure that you're checking our school website for athletic updates, and Ms. Jones will be sending out emails. But just remember, things can change with athletics, and the information we're putting out now is the information that we have as of today. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Next week, we are going to be talking, Ms. Gunter will be back with us. We're going to be talking about a topic that I'm actually super excited about, and it's about radical acceptance and how to accept your present situation. And so I'm super excited about that. I'm super excited to talk about it. Okay, awesome. Thank you guys, and thank you, Mr. Simos, for being with us, and Ms. Jones, who already left, but thank you. Have a great rest of your day.